The photograph was wedged behind the baseboard, curled at the edges and furred with dust. I found it on my knees in the spare bedroom, prying up old trim before the contractor arrived Monday morning. The house had needed this renovation for years, but I had let it decay the same way I had let everything else go. The wood came free with a crack that sent splinters across the floor, and there it was, face down against exposed drywall, as if it had been waiting. I sat back on my heels and turned it over. The image was faded but clear enough. I was standing in the backyard with my hands on my hips, head tilted back, mouth open in a laugh I did not remember producing. The light was golden. Late afternoon, probably September. I was younger by a decade at least, still lean, still steady on my feet. The photo had been taken from the kitchen window. I could tell by the angle, by the way the glass had caught a faint reflection of the room behind the lens. She had been inside, watching me, and I had not known. I had burned everything else 4 years ago in the fire pit out back. Every album, every frame, every scrap of paper that carried her face or her handwriting. It had taken most of an evening. My son had called while the fire was still going, and I had let it ring through to voicemail because I could not trust my voice. My daughter had stopped calling by then. Now I held the one thing I had missed, and my hands were shaking. I set the photograph on the windowsill and stood slowly. My knees complained. The house was quiet in the way only empty houses are, a kind of density to the silence that presses in from the walls. I had lived here alone since the divorce, and the space had organized itself around my routines. Coffee at 6, dinner at 7, bed by 10. I moved through the rooms like a ghost touring his own life, and the photo on the sill felt like an accusation. I had been a husband for 26 years, a father for 24. I had believed I understood the terms: stability, provision, respect. I had built a career in logistics because it required precision and rewarded consistency. I had applied the same principles at home: mortgage paid early, college funds established before the kids started school, a house maintained, a lawn mowed, a car serviced on schedule. I did not raise my voice. I did not drink to excess. I showed up. And then I learned she had not. The discovery had been simple and stupid. A phone bill I opened by accident, hers instead of mine, because the envelopes looked identical and I had been distracted. A number repeated across weeks, hours of calls made during the day while I was at the office and the kids were in school. I had stared at the columns of data the way I stared at shipping manifests, tracking patterns, identifying anomalies. The calls always ended before 3 in the afternoon, never on weekends. The number belonged to a man whose name I found after 2 more days of checking old emails she had left open on the shared computer. A colleague from her part-time work at the library. Younger by 8 years. Single. I looked him up online and studied his face until I had memorized it. I did not confront her immediately. I am not built that way. I needed to understand the scope first. I installed software on her laptop that logged keystrokes, though I felt soiled doing it. I found messages, months of them, detailed and explicit enough that I stopped reading after the first few exchanges. I took screenshots, saved them to a thumb drive, and locked it in my desk. Then I sat in my car in the garage for an hour with the engine off, breathing slowly through my nose until the shaking stopped. When I finally spoke to her, it was over breakfast on a Saturday. The kids were still asleep. I slid a printed copy of one message across the table, face down, and waited for her to turn it over. Her face went white, then red. She said his name like it was an explanation. I asked how long. She said it did not matter. I asked if she loved him. She stood up and left the room. We separated within 2 weeks. I moved nothing from the house except my clothes and my files. I told the kids their mother and I were done, and I did not embellish. My son, 22 and fresh out of college, asked what happened. I said we had grown apart. My daughter, 19 and midway through sophomore year, looked at her mother and then at me and said she knew I was lying. I did not correct her. The divorce took 11 months. I hired a lawyer who worked like a surgeon, clean and dispassionate. I did not contest the settlement because I wanted it finished. The house went to her. Retirement accounts were split. I kept my pension and took an apartment near my office. I signed the papers in a conference room that smelled like carpet cleaner, and I walked out into the parking lot feeling nothing at all. The fire came later, after the final decree. I had kept a box of photos in the apartment, things I had taken from the house before I left. Pictures of vacations and holidays and school events. Her face appeared in most of them, smiling or distracted or caught mid-sentence. I looked through the box one night after too much silence and too much time alone, and something inside me gave way. I drove to the old house, the one she still lived in, and parked 2 blocks away. The fire pit was in the backyard, and I still had the gate key. I let myself in at midnight, piled the photos in the iron bowl, and lit them with a match from my pocket. The flames were bright and fast. Paper curls and blackens before it burns, and I watched every image disappear into smoke. When it was done, I raked the ashes smooth and left without locking the gate behind me. My son found out because a neighbor mentioned it to my ex-wife, who told him. He called me at work and asked if I had lost my mind. I said no. He said I was acting insane. I said I was handling things my own way. He said I was pushing everyone away, and he was right, but I did not say so. The call ended badly. We did not speak for 5 months after that. My daughter stopped speaking to me sooner. She had sided with her mother early, which I understood even if it hurt. She was young and loyal and did not have the tools yet to see complexity. I sent her emails. She did not reply. I called on her birthday. She let it go to voicemail. I told myself it was temporary, that time would soften things, but the months became years, and the silence hardened into something permanent. I lived with it the way you live with a scar. You stop noticing until someone asks about it. The photo on the windowsill stayed there for 3 days while I worked around it, pulling up baseboards and replacing drywall anchors. The contractor came Monday and walked through the house making notes. He was younger than my son, efficient and polite. He asked if I wanted to update the kitchen. I said yes. He asked if I was planning to sell. I said I did not know. The question hung in the air between us like something fragile. That evening I sat in the living room with the photo in my hands and tried to remember the moment it captured. I could not. I did not know what I had been laughing at or why I had been outside or what had happened 5 minutes later. The image was complete and unreachable, a fragment of a life I had burned to ash and scattered. But she had taken it. She had seen something worth keeping, even if I had not. I thought about the months before I found the phone bill, the dinners we had eaten in near silence, the nights we had lain in bed reading separate books, the careful distance we had maintained, polite and cold. I had believed the coldness was mutual, a natural drift that happened after decades of proximity. But if she had taken this photo, if she had preserved this moment, then perhaps the distance had not started where I thought it had. I began going through old files, looking for context. Bank statements, credit card bills, calendars I had kept in desk drawers. I worked backward from the day I found the phone bill, tracing patterns I had missed. A withdrawal here, a charge at a restaurant I did not recognize. A weekend she said she was visiting her sister, but the sister later mentioned at the funeral that they had not seen each other in over a year. Small inconsistencies, easy to overlook unless you were searching for them. The affair had lasted 14 months before I discovered it. The messages I found went back that far, though I suspected it had started earlier. I tried to map it against my own life, against the days I had thought were ordinary. A work trip where I had been proud of closing a difficult contract. A birthday dinner where she had smiled and thanked me for the earrings I had chosen. A Christmas morning where we had watched the kids open gifts and pretended everything was fine. It was possible she had loved me even while betraying me. I did not know what to do with that possibility. I called my son on a Tuesday evening. He answered after 4 rings, wary. I asked how he was. He said fine. I asked about his work. He gave short answers. I asked if he would meet me for lunch on Saturday. He paused long enough that I thought he might refuse, but then he said yes. We met at a diner halfway between his apartment and mine. Neutral ground. I arrived early and sat in a booth by the window, watching traffic pass. He came in 5 minutes late, thinner than I remembered, wearing a jacket I did not recognize. We shook hands. He sat across from me and studied the menu without speaking. I ordered coffee. He ordered a sandwich. We waited in silence until the server left. I said I had found something in the house. He looked up. I took the photo from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table. He picked it up and frowned. "You were renovating," he said. I nodded. He studied the photo for a long moment. "You look happy." I said I did not remember it. He set the photo down and looked at me. "You burned all of them." I nodded again. He leaned back and crossed his arms. "Why are you showing me this now?" I said I did not know. I said I thought it mattered. He looked out the window. The light was flat and gray. He said he had been angry at me for a long time. He said he thought I had handled the divorce like a coward, hiding behind silence and letting Mom take all the blame in his eyes. He said he had talked to her since then, that she had told him more than I had, that he understood now it was complicated. But he also said I had scared him. The fire, the way I had shut down, the way I had disappeared into myself. I listened. I did not interrupt. He said he was still angry, but he was tired of it. I said I was sorry. I said I had not known how to manage it any other way. I said I had been trying to protect him and his sister, which sounded stupid even as I said it. He picked up the photo again. "She kept this," he said. I said I thought so. I said it had been hidden behind the baseboard, as if she had tucked it there before she left. He shook his head. "She never left. You did." I started to correct him, but he was right. I had moved out. She had stayed in the house until she sold it 2 years later. She would have had time to hide something, to leave something behind for me to find. Or maybe it had fallen there by accident, and I was constructing meaning where none existed. My son handed the photo back. "You should talk to her," he said. I said I did not think she would want to hear from me. He said I should try anyway. The server brought our food. We ate slowly, the conversation shifting to safer ground. His job, the apartment he was renting, plans he had to visit his sister over the holidays. He did not invite me to join them, but he did not explicitly exclude me either. When we finished, I paid the check, and we walked to the parking lot together. Before he got in his car, he turned and said he would talk to his sister. He said he could not promise anything, but he would try. I thanked him. He nodded and drove away. I stood in the parking lot for a while, holding the photo, feeling the weight of years pressing down like snow. Then I drove home and called my ex-wife. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was careful. I said my name, though she knew. She asked what I wanted. I said I had found something, and I thought it might have been hers. I described the photo. There was a long silence on the other end. She said she remembered taking it. She said I had been talking to the dog, doing a terrible impression of a sports announcer, and it had made her laugh. She said she had taken the photo because I looked like the man she had married before things got hard. I asked why she had left it behind. She said she had not meant to. She said she had been packing boxes the week before the sale closed, and it must have slipped. She paused, then said maybe it was better that way. I asked what she meant. She said she thought I had needed to find it on my own, when I was ready. I did not know what to say to that. She asked if I was all right. I said I was working on it. She said she was glad. She said she had not wanted things to end the way they did. She said the affair was her fault, that she had been selfish and scared, that she had hurt me in ways she could not undo. But she also said I had hurt her by refusing to fight. She said I had let her go without ever asking her to stay. I told her I had not known how to ask. She said she knew. We talked for another 20 minutes. Not about reconciliation, which was years too late, but about the time we had shared and the ways we had failed each other. She told me she had remarried, which I had not known. I told her I was happy for her, and I meant it. She asked if I had been seeing anyone. I said no. She said I should. Before we hung up, she asked me to send the photo to our daughter. She said it might help. I said I would try. That evening, I scanned the photo and emailed it to my daughter with a short message. I told her I had found it in the house. I told her I thought she might want to see it. I did not apologize because I had already tried that, and it had not worked. I simply sent the image and waited. She did not reply for a week. I checked my email compulsively, refreshing the inbox at breakfast and lunch and before bed. When her message finally came, it was brief. She said the photo made her sad. She said she wished I had been that person more often. She said she was willing to talk, but she needed time. I wrote back and said I understood. I said I would wait as long as it took. The renovation continued. The contractor finished the spare bedroom and moved on to the kitchen. I spent evenings sorting through boxes I had ignored for years, throwing out documents I no longer needed, organizing the debris of a life half lived. I found other photos, ones I had missed during the fire, pictures of my children as toddlers, pictures of my parents, long dead. I kept them this time. I bought frames and hung them in the hallway, small reminders that I had not always been alone. My daughter called me on a Sunday afternoon in November. We talked for an hour, stiff and cautious at first, then easier as the minutes passed. She told me about her work, about the apartment she shared with 2 friends, about a trip she was planning to take in the spring. She asked about the house. I told her about the renovation, about the photo, about the conversation I had with her brother. She said she had talked to him too. She said he thought I was trying. I said I was. She asked if I was happy. I said I was getting there. Before we hung up, she said she might visit over the holidays, if I wanted. I said I did. She said she would let me know. The call ended, and I sat in the quiet kitchen with my phone in my hand, feeling something close to hope. The photo stayed on my desk, propped against a lamp. I looked at it often, studying the man I had been, trying to reconcile him with the man I had become. I had spent 4 years believing that burning the past would free me, but it had only left me hollow. The fire had consumed more than photographs. It had consumed memory, nuance, the possibility of forgiveness. But the one image that survived had cracked something open. Not enough to undo the damage, but enough to let light in. My son came by the house in December to see the renovation. He walked through the rooms, nodding at the new paint and the refinished floors. In the kitchen, he paused at the counter and ran his hand along the smooth surface. "Looks good," he said. I thanked him. He turned and looked at me. "You should keep it." I asked what he meant. "The house," he said. "Don't sell it. Make it yours." I had been considering selling once the work was finished. The thought of staying in a place tied to so much failure felt like a weight I did not need to carry. But my son was right. Running had not fixed anything. Maybe staying would. I told him I would think about it. He smiled, the first real smile I had seen from him in years, and I felt the tightness in my chest loosen. My daughter visited 2 days before Christmas. She stayed for the afternoon, cautious but present. We drank coffee in the living room and talked about nothing important. She complimented the renovations. She asked if I was still working. I said yes, though I was thinking about retiring. She said I should do what made me happy. I asked what that looked like to her. She shrugged. Less lonely, maybe. I nodded. Before she left, she hugged me. It was brief, almost formal, but it was real. I held on a moment longer than I should have, and she did not pull away. After she was gone, I sat in the living room and looked at the photo on my desk. The man in the image was laughing at something I could not remember, caught in a moment of unguarded joy. I had spent years trying to forget him, burning every trace of the life he had lived. But he was still there, waiting behind the baseboard, preserved by a woman who had seen something worth keeping. I did not know if I could become that man again. I did not know if I wanted to. But I could try to find something close. I could rebuild, not the past, but something newer and sturdier, built on honesty instead of silence. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt empty. The walls held memory now, hung in frames and propped on desks. My children were still distant, but they were no longer gone. My ex-wife had moved on, but she had wished me well. I had burned everything once, and the ashes had taught me nothing. But the one thing that survived had given me a way forward. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the yard was dark and still. The fire pit sat cold and unused. I thought about filling it in, planting grass over the scar, but decided against it. Some things should remain visible. Some mistakes should not be erased. I turned back to the room and looked at the photo one last time. Then I picked it up, carried it to the hallway, and hung it on the wall beside the others. It belonged there, with the rest of the evidence that I had lived, that I had failed, that I was still here. The man in the photograph was laughing, and I let him.